asked Mr. Pahlen, representing the Swedish Transport Administration, to give their view on intelligent transport system and how they can be used in a corridor perspective. So I give the floor to Mr. Pahlen.
Thank you, Christopher. As Christopher said, I'm representing today Swedish Transport Administration, and going to talk to you about a little bit what we have done within the ITS area in this project. And here is a short agenda for this speech. I will start by defining intelligent transport systems for those of you who are not perfectly sure what it means. I will also try to have some words about the perspective on ITS from the Swedish administration, as we are representing the infrastructure provider in this case. I will tell you about the different measures that we identified, the use cases we have put together as a consequence of the identified measures. And to sum up, I will conclude with a contribution of ITS for the greening of transport. First of all, I would like to start with this definition of ITS. First of all, I will provide you with a long one, and it's that the official European Commission from 2010, which is takes a quite large scope, and I will quote: "Intelligent transport systems, or ITS, means systems in which information and communication technologies are applied in the field of road transport, including infrastructure, vehicles, and users, and in the traffic management and mobility management, as well as for interfaces with other transport modes." That was a long one. And for those of you who are very interested in the short version, I would say the report that was brought in 2012 by Stumber and Anderson, also for the Swedish administration, more concluding definition, and that would say that ITS is management and coordination of by means of information applied in a traffic setting. I would say that as the area is developing, I would say the second definition is more what we see, look at ITS today, and it's definitely the one that I embrace in this presentation and that we have made in the work in the ITS. So, and also I would conclude that it will encompass all the transport modes, which is important in this case. And next, for the perspective ITS representing a infrastructure provider, we have the role of making the transport system as efficient on the infrastructure and as efficient as possible for the least money. So, of course, we have to look at the taxpayers' worth of ITS investments, which is an important criteria. And, of course, we look at the other demands. For example, I listed some of them here in this table. Of course, we know all about the growing transport demand that we can see. And the important thing here is we from an EU perspective, that of course we have to have an open market within the EU, so we can't curb mobility, which is very important. We can't just forbid people to travel. We can't forbid goods to travel along within the European Union, of course. We also can see that we have increased capacity strain, and especially in urban environments, we have both pollution and congestion, which are causing huge problems, of course. We can see that the transport system is getting increasingly incident sensitive. So, and also what we're focused on in this aspect is both transport efficiency and transport reliability, which is important criteria. And of course, we want to, as I started by saying, it's of course, how will we make transport system as efficient as possible without investing too much in new infrastructure? And here, I think, and we think that ITS has a vital role to make a difference in this aspect. And just to mention how we look at infrastructure investments is that we have something we call the four-step principle. And that's basically saying that you shouldn't build new if you have any other possibility to increase the capacity of the infrastructure. So first of all, rethink the use of the infrastructure, optimize it, rebuild, and if that's not possible, build new. So, and of course, that's our ground criteria for looking at ITS services. And that also, of course, it can be applied, or is applied both nationally, locally, and within the corridor perspective. As for what we've done in the Swiftly Green project, we have looked into the different ITS measures, and I've just provided a selection of ITS measures that we have identified in this slide. Some of them are more conceptual, and we call them enablers. And here we can say the transport ID, which is basically a conceptual idea of each transport assignment having a specific ID that you can follow and then communicate to different sources. For example, for the corridor manager, if there would be one in the future, or the local transport authorities, or the traffic control center in an urban area, which of course it would be an important thing. We also discovered or defined other enablers such as load unit ID, which could be related to the RFID, radio frequency identification that you have, or GPS certification, and infrastructure ID. That would be the enablers, and that's just to map the transport network of transport infrastructure. As for the more operational ones, we have identified both operational measures and strategic measures. And operational measures are measures that actually they should change place in the slide. I'm sorry for that. Strategic measures are the ones that we can deal with before a transport train takes place. So that's a planning perspective. As for the operational perspective, is when you are at road and when you can change your route, for example, within a transport setting. And this is what we have chosen to provide, to make it more specific. We have clustered those individual measures into use cases. And just to be specific and to put all these ITS measures into a relation. And we have defined 4 use cases that you can find in the replica tool. And we've chosen corridor section management. That's the infrastructure provider's way to direct traffic with ITS. We have an urban gateway and management perspective or function, where you have the urban transport. And of course, in urban areas, you have basically have your own ITS system. But looking at the corridor perspective, you have this what's a basic functionality, and you have the corridor functionality. Because if you don't not going to that urban gateway, you like to pass it. And of course, that can be a problem for the transport corridor as well, as to making the traffic as fluent as possible. We have intermodal gateway and management. The intermodal problem, as I said, ITS is not, of course, not limited to road transport anymore. And we have transport management, which is the opposite of corridor section management, which is the transport operator's perspective of how to make the full transport as efficient as possible with the information and the ITS tools that are available. That's basically what I was about to say about the 4 use cases, which we have included. As for the ITS and overall greening effect, I have made this summing up. And of course, we have chosen these 4 use cases for having a corridor scope. And if you look at the evaluation, we have a corridor scope as well. But these are not just made to that. But basically, ITS get a high score in corridor scope. We also have marketability. As I said in the beginning, some of the measures are conceptual and quite hard to evaluate when they could come into action. But in general, ITS and many of the ITS services are very close to market. As we said, well, you have a high TRL. As for the greening effect, that's also a problem. But looking at the efficiency and reliability, we don't always have a high greening effect on ITS measures. But basically, that's most of all an effect of that. That is just to get the transport system more efficient is not always leading to more greening effects, even if we have a close to market approach. Economically, as we had this question before, we have a short payback time in general for most ITS services and the measures, which of course should be visible in the replicator. Just to conclude, before my 10 minutes are up, ITS investments are justified by low cost in most cases, and they have a high impact on efficiency and reliability in the transport system. They also allows for increased transport demand without curbing mobility, taking into account all the information that could be available for the transport users and the transport infrastructure providers. It also alleviates some barriers in urban transport, being this urban management. It also facilitates incident control and management by enabling efficient communication of data and information from sensors within the infrastructure or communication from the infrastructure users. It also will increase the use of existing infrastructure. It doesn't provide any simple solutions. I mean, it's a very complex if you look at the big mix that you have to provide in order to get. And also, ITS measures are also clustered, or they can't be just measured on their own. And ITS contributes to increased efficiency. Environmental and social benefits are a consequence thereof. So, as I said before, the consequence of using ITS is basically increased efficiency, but the environmental and social benefits are not directly related to the ITS measures, even if so could be the case. And lastly, ITS measures are a part of the modern physical infrastructure, but also technologically under development, which means that the main contribution is provided through combination of use cases. Sorry for the wrong in the formulation. But you have to put together use cases where several measures are used and put together as a service just to get it right. So that's